Hey everyone, David C. Anderson here, coming at you from the KnifeCenter, and it is our favorite time of the week because, as you all know, there's new knives in front of me on the table, and I think they're the coolest ones that have just hit our shelf, so let's check them out. All right, first items this week are from MKM. First off, we have got new versions. I'm trying to decide which one I want to pick up. Let's pick up the red one. New versions of our exclusive Campo 8 Swiss Army style multi-tool, but don't call it a Swiss Army knife. This is a cool model and one that's kind of close to my heart because it kind of put a bunch of tools together the way I wanted to see them in a way. First and foremost, on the back side, you've got both a corkscrew and a Phillips screwdriver. You don't have to make that decision between one or the other. That screwdriver pitch is actually the same as some of those Victorinox things. So
the corkscrew pitch?
That's what I said, right?
You said screwdriver pitch.
Corkscrew pitch, thank you, Thomas, for the correction. Well, actually, we can test this out right here. What I was gonna say is that that pitch will allow you to fit some of the Victorinox accessories, such as the small eyeglasses screwdriver, these small fire steels, that sort of thing. Will fit right there. Oh no, it's a little bit tight. It can be made to work, but it's not gonna go all the way down. So as you can see there, it do fit, which is kind of a nice thing indeed. So slightly different, but it's close enough that they should still work. Biggest kind of piece of news, of course, blade steel M390, significant upgrade over most of these pocket knife style multi-tools. We've also got a secondary serrated blade in 420 steel, not the upgraded blade steel here. And on top of that, we have a nice pair of scissors. We have a nice wood saw, and we have a can opener and bottle opener with a screwdriver, flat head screwdriver on that. To me, this is like the version of this tool I would take camping personally. It's got everything I want for that sort of situation. And now burlap micarta handle scales is the new, new versions of the Campo 8. 3 of them. We've got red, we've got brown, and we've got green, which, there's a little bit of green in there. Truth be told, it kind of came out just like a slightly darker or a little bit darker brown than the more golden brown. It's almost like a honey oat flavored version right here. I actually I like the green, even though it's not green. That's a good color. Very cool. Check them out right now. A little bit more pricey than the standard micarta versions, which we do still have a few of those available, but still fairly reasonable for what you're getting here. I think just under $150. Made in Italy, made very nicely. Check them out. We've also got the long-awaited TPF, the Terzuola TPF, meaning Terzuola Pocket Fixed Blade. TPF Defense is the full name of this Bob Terzuola design. Very, very cool. Magna-cut blade steel here, 3 1/4 inches long. It is a tactical style blade, certainly, but it is a tactical style blade that lends itself well to everyday utility. Drop point, high enough of a grind on this steel where it's gonna be slicey enough for most day-to-day things, while not being like super slicey. It's gonna get the job done, and swedge there to thin out the tip and remove some drag along the spine. Plenty of handle there to grab onto it. Just barely fits all 4 of my fingers, but there's enough thickness to it that it feels like a pretty solid grip for its size, which is appreciated for sure. Magna-cut steel, in case you're unaware, why this is kind of the hottest blade material right now. It's very stainless, it's very tough, and it holds an edge a real long time. Pretty much any other high performance blade steel out there can only really do 2 of those 3 things well at the same time. Magna-cut does all 3 to very high marks. Now, TPF, the P is pocket, and that's because this is a pocket fixed blade. It comes with MKM's excellent magnetic sheath system. Black leather, which is completely symmetrical, so right or left hand pocket, no problem. Magnetic flap here allows you to throw the rest of the sheath in the pocket. The flap folds over the hem at the top, keeps it in place so that the handle's right where you want it to be when you grab it, but still easy to take the whole thing out when you want it to. And the ambidextrousness is nice to it as well. Price on these with the micarta handles right here, about $169 or just under $170. You can also get other materials such as carbon fiber for a little bit more money. A Santos wood, like a mahogany, about the same price. Or no, about $10 more, I should say. And then there's a black bladed version with lava flow carbon fiber for just under $200 too. So not a huge range of price difference there, but a kind of healthy feeling range of some nice options. There you go, check it out. Next up, we've got a ton of new ZT, well, one new ZT and a ton of new Kershaw. They are sister companies, so in my mind, I lumped them all together. Let's start with the first new ZT in some time, first new ZT folder, the 545. This is not the same kind of ZT of the early days of the big, burly, overbuilt style of knives, but it takes that style, that kind of inclination for that particular build quality and scales it down into something very, very everyday pocket friendly. Very cool little knife. $272, it isn't inexpensive, but you get here a MagnaCut blade, 3 1/4 inches long, full flat grind on that drop point. And the more I look at this blade, I'm genuinely really, really happy with it. It's always hard to make a drop point blade feel distinctive. This one has enough character to it that I think we're gonna be able to recognize as, oh, that's that ZT in the years to come. Really nice and thin, very, very slicey. Titanium frame lock there with a heavy working finish on it. Gonna hide scratches. Well, scratches may show up on this a little bit more due to the kind of darkened finish around the stonewashed blade. Scratches will definitely hide in there a little bit more nicely as you use the knife. Use the knife, folks. Carbon fiber on the front to keep weight down. On that note, let's see, the spec, they say 2.01 ounces. On my scale over on my desk, I measured 1.9. You know what this is? This is what you get if ZT said, let's make our version of the Bug Out from Benchmade, that ultralight folder. Thomas, bug out me. Here is and Bug Out for comparison. Blade length, just about the same. Sharpen length, just about the same. Thomas has sharpened this a few times, so it may have come down just a skosh.
Knowing how I treat tips, yeah.
He may plus the tip a little bit. So about the same, or maybe even a slight edge on the ZT here, plus MagnaCut over S30V is nice. Not an ambidextrous lock, but the system here, or the titanium construction here, lends this a more solid feel in the hand than the Gryphon handles on the Bug Out. So you get that, like 1.8 versus 1.9, that's the same. We're gonna call it the same. Equally disappears in the pocket until you need it. The blade stock on the ZT is actually just a hair thinner, perhaps, or just about the same. The chamfer may be throwing me off just a little bit there, but virtually the same, even slicier with the higher height of the flat grind there. So you've got an even narrower cross section. Thinner in the pocket, maybe? About the same. Let's be honest. Not enough to make a noticeable difference in feel. There's the closed up profile. Reversible pocket clip? Yes, reversible and mounted from the inside, wrapping over the top. So very, very deep carry. Thomas, here's your Bug Out back. It is a very slicey, very cool little knife. I like it quite a bit. It's got everything you need. The KVT ball bearings, you've got the lock bar insert there for longevity and over travel stoppageness on the inside. Nice fine cutout on the lock bar, not a big wide cut right there. Just kind of tells you the precision that's going into this knife. Very, very cool. On the Kershaw front, we've got a bunch of springy knives to talk about. First off, they're Livewire. They really knocked it out of the park with their first OTF knife, double action automatic OTF knife, I should say, because there's been manual things. But anyway, Tanto version now available for about $240. Also, MagnaCut blade steel here, 3.3 inches long, black stonewashed finish, and black aluminum frame. Action is great. Nothing at all to complain about there. The pocket clip looks a little unusual in the way it sits here, but in practice and in the pocket, there's nothing weird about it at all, despite the interesting looking angle right there. You can check that out. It works really well. The geometry of it, I like. You've got a full flat grind on this Tonto, so it's a little slicier than a lot of OTF knives out there can be. So I like that. You can also get now with the original spear point profile, black aluminum with a black blade, not black stonewashed, but a black blade. That also just dropped. And several new Launch knives. The Launch series, of course, being their side opening automatic series. This is the Launch 16, now available for the first time with a plain edge blade. They launched this with a black handle and partial serrations. Now you can get OD green with no partial serrations. $150 for this. The only Tonto in the Launch lineup, and I think really adds something to kind of the variety of the Launch lineup with this particular knife. Kind of expands what that lineup encompasses. M4 blade steel here, very cool. It holds an edge really well. It is very tough. Remember what I said earlier about MagnaCut? Like, not all high performance steels can only usually do 2 of those things really well. Not a particularly stain resistant steel, but you have a black coating here to kind of help prevent that corrosion, or keep it at bay anyway. Traction inserts here, similar to the Kershaw Blur on the aluminum frame. It gives you enough grip. The action on all the Launch knives is typically fantastic, and it definitely is here. Full length grip, I like that a lot. Deep carry pocket clip, it is reversible, which is quite nice because this is, being a button locking knife, easy to use left-handed, as I missed the button there. You'd get used to it. You'd figure out where to find that button. Anyway, yeah, really stout tactical folding automatic, or just a hard working, heavy utility automatic. We've also got the Launch 17, 3.5-inch clip point blade on this. Handle is similar to the Launch 15, which comes with more like a spear point blade. This one coming in about $145 with an S35 VN blade. Really wickedly acute tip on that knife. Makes it maybe a little more tactical or a little more self-defense oriented than the more utility bladed or utility focused, whatever, other Launch one, 15. On the aluminum frame here, we've got G10 inlays, 2 on the front, 1 on the back, reversible deep carry clip again, and that Launch action. A little bit thinner than the Launch, was it the 14 we just looked at? I get the numbers confused, sorry Kershaw. The 16 we just looked at. A little bit thinner steel here, a little bit slicier, a little bit more friendly for slicing. And then we've also got the Launch 18, which itself is kind of a spin-off of the Launch 11. Staying with me, kids? Here we go. I've got one of those Launch 11s here, and you'll see exactly where they kind of tweaked it. Now we've got a solid handle without the pass-through and a slightly different blade shape, a little more acute, lot more acute actually, and more slicey too, with a higher grind, full flat in this case, versus the high saber we'll call the other one. Action still great, price on them still great. I mean, the Launch series offers an incredible value, I'd say, 135 bucks. CPM 154 blade steel, which is where the Launch series has typically resided. Great material. I'm glad to see they're not abandoning that yet, because I still think it is quite good. Same stuff, aluminum frame, reversible deep carry clip, fantastic action, new blade shape. Really slicey, I like it a lot. Gonna be a very nice everyday carry. We've also got another Launch 14. This is the last Launch, I promise. New version with red carbon fiber. There's red fibers in there, red layers of threading in there. $155 for this one. The front handle is not an inlay, it's actually 2 pieces. You've got black aluminum here, and anchored off of the back of that, you've got the carbon fiber, and then all aluminum on the back. Reversible clip, not deep carry in this case. Big old cleaver blade, CPM 154 here as well. A little bit thicker than the this one. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, I forgot the numbers.
Failure to launch.
I suppose. All right, give it up for Thomas, good one. The Launch 17. But here you go. This is a big honkin' cleaver style blade, but I've always felt this is a pretty useful blade day to day because it's not overly thick, it's not overly chunky. It still has a good geometry for fairly efficient cuts. And the swedge on the back helps that as well too. I like it. If your budgets or your proclivity towards an automatic run counter to what these launches are going for, we have the new Kershaw Thermal also to check out, kind of in the vein in a lot of their budget knives up to this point. About $42, actually several knives to look at here, about 42 bucks. 3-inch blade, 8CR steel, nice robust stainless steel handle here. This is a knife that has a little bit of weight to it. So if you like that kind of reassuring heft that kind of thing can provide, you're definitely gonna find it here. Frame lock, reversible deep carry pocket clip, assisted opening, nice flipper tab there, and just a great generic's the wrong word, great do-it-all blade shape with a little bit of style thanks to the two-tone nature. Good looking drop point. You're gonna be able to do everything you need day to day with something like that. Next up, for, let's do the math here. For like 51 cents more, you could get this. And this is actually a really noteworthy knife in my opinion. This is the Kihon DC from the mind of Lucas Burnley and produced by Boker Plus. $42, less than $42.50 for this. We've got a 3¼ inch blade, D2 steel, great type of kind of bridging the gap between a lot of different use cases with this blade geometry and the actual shape. I'll get more back to that in just a minute. The handle, same thing. Injection molded, but we have full length liners here, so it's not as lightweight as something like the Bug Out. This definitely has a bit more to it. 3.7 ounces. Thomas, do you have your Bug Out still over there? This is the comparison that everyone's gonna invariably wonder about. So here, let's do it. Little bit shorter. The Bug Out, I mean, is a little bit of a shorter blade, a little bit of a more, actually a lot of a bit more compact. The Kihon DC gives you something that feels like it could work a lot heavier, a lot bigger than its size. You've got enough girth to those handles that they work really well in a strong grip. You've got a blade style that could stand up to some heavier work thanks to it being a little bit thicker and not being full flat grind, but it's not too far in the other direction where you can't just cut through boxes and slice stuff day to day. Even a little bit of food prep would be okay with this blade geometry, I'd say. The action on the ambidextrous crossbar lock there, exactly what you want. Do we have ball bearings in here? I'm trying to remember. Yep, ball bearings in the pivot. I mean, it's great. You've got thumb stud action if you'd rather. Dual thumb studs and ambidextrous lock mean you can use this with either hand quite easily. And a really cool thing that they did, they listened to feedback that we and probably some other people might have given them when they initially showed us this knife back at Blade Show this year, I think it was. This past, Thomas, do you remember? I think it was Blade Show in Atlanta this past year where we first saw this knife. And when we saw that sample, the pocket clip was not reversible, but now it is. I remember talking to him about that. I was like, man, it would have been cool with everything else. It would have been real easy to make it reversible and make some lefties happy. They did it. There you go. Deep carry, or not deep carry clip, but a wire clip, I should say, folded over, holds a little bit out of the top of the pocket, but not a terribly big amount, and completely reversible. So I like that. Even if you're not a lefty, some folks like to carry a knife on that offhand side if your other hand is typically occupied with other things. Very happy that they listened to feedback there and gave us something everyone could use. Speaking of it being something everyone can use, I'll just mention one more thing about the handle. It's kind of straight and just plain works no matter what your hand size is going to be. Nothing there is prescriptive about the grip. It just gives you a handle to work with, which is nice. And the injection molding there has a little bit of contour to it as well. A little bit of texture and some like inlay plates, faux inlays there. Pop of color from the pivot ring, front and back. Not a pivot here at the back, you know what I mean. This is a fantastic budget knife. Like I said, $42.50. Might be the budget knife to beat this year. We'll have to wait and see. Well done, Boker. Awesome. Next up, the Canary from QSP. Previously was a small fixed blade neck knife. They've now sized it up just a little bit to create the Canary folder. These are also about 42 bucks. Sub 3-inch blade, we're about 2 7/8 thereabouts. Full flat grind on the drop point, a little bit of style to this drop point as well. It's not, just a perfectly plain thing. There's a little bit going on. Full flat grind, not too thick. Great everyday carry blade. G10 handles, of which there are many colors to choose from. Some bright ones and some more plain ones. Here's one of the other ones, bright green with a black stone-washed blade. You can get it in just black and satin if you want, or black and stone-washed anyway. So there's definitely more subtle variations to be had. Deep carry pocket clip inset with flush-mounted screws. It is reversible. They include a blockout plate on the front side just to keep things nice and classy looking. Inset liner lock, ball bearings in the pivot. Great action. I mean, it just pops open quite nicely. Great everyday carry blade if you just need, a pocket knife. You don't need something big for big work, but you want just a pocket knife. Be hard to go wrong with something like this. 2.6 ounces on the weight, not too heavy. Works really well. If that's your budget though, and you think, a little small, like I said, for like 51 cents more, you could get this right there. So great to have options nowadays on the budget side of things. Speaking of, Kizer has been expanding their Laconic series, which is kind of their, they're using that as a label to call all of their least expensive offerings, all constructed kind of similarly right now, with this knife, the Gryphon with a YPH. $49, 3.5-inch blade, really distinctive recurved clip points, but there's a compound grind there. Some people might be inclined to call that a Tonto. You'd be wrong. I'm not gonna fight you about it. Check out that cool blade shape. Almost like a, if you like the Grimsmo Norseman, but you can't afford something like that, maybe this could get you somewhere in the ballpark. Pretty cool. G10 handles, reversible deep carry pocket clip, flush mounted screws, but not inset, but everything's rounded over pretty nicely on the edges of the clip. I don't foresee that being a problem with snags. Button lock. Very nice. Flipping, very nice as well. Finger safe action, like that. Just keeps your fingers right out of the way, which is always just an extra nice feature to have. Very cool. This is obviously all about style, but this kind of blade shape does give you some added advantages in terms of increasing the amount of sharpened edge you have in the given length, which is about 3.5, if I didn't mention it already here. And also, especially on pull cuts, on draw cuts, you get to engage more of that edge too. It kind of bites in, or it has a tendency to bite in a little bit more because it kind of pushes into the blade, or it gathers material into that recurve. Very cool. Very cool. They make some liner locking stuff too in the Laconic series. You can, just give that word a search. Not Laconico, that's Ray Laconico, excellent designer. This has nothing to do with Ray Laconico, but it's funny. Kizer has worked with Ray Laconico several times in the past, however.
Confusion just mounts.
The confusion mounts. How about a new Sheepdog, new button lock Sheepdog? New version here, 89 bucks with a 154 cm blade and black canvas micarta handles. We've got inset deep carry pocket clip with flush mounted screw heads there. We've got that button lock action and the flipper tab delete that is becoming very popular on this model. It keeps things a little cleaner when it's closed, less sticking out there. Still easy to open thanks to that blade cutout, or of course, the button lock swinging type of action, and lets you choke up on this knife in a way that was more difficult to do with the big flipper tab in the way. Like the Launch cleaver we looked at earlier, this is also a big cleaver style blade that stays on the more useful side rather than the more overbuilt side. I shouldn't say that. There's certainly uses for overbuilt knives, but this stays on the more efficient cutting side. Thin enough blade stock there, pretty high flat grind in this case. It's got very good slicing and cutting geometry right there, but you're still gonna be able to push it through some big cuts when you need it to. Very, very cool knife. Similar blade style, we've got the Towser K, now available with that Ultem material that some people love, some people hate. Let us know in the comments. $104 for this version, 3.4 inch blade, or just about with 154 cm. Are we a little bit thicker than the Sheepdog? Yeah, just a hair thicker, so not quite as slicey, but minor differences in this case. There's a black version with black liners as well, but as we saw last week when we were comparing some Civivis, the satin or non-coated liners really help the Ultem shine more than the black version. So I pulled that one right here. Smooth in this case, so it's more of a like high polished Ultem, more jewel-like than some of the milled versions can be. Apart from that, you've got ball bearings in the pivot with just thumb studs in this case. Pops open really nicely. I like the treatment on the edge of the liner lock here, some almost some scalloping there that enhances the jewel-like quality of the whole knife, especially when you see it polished the way it is. Deep carry pocket clip, not inset, but flush head screws there. Comfortable handle too. There's some shape to this that you don't really see too much in a flat photograph, but hopefully the play of the light here will give you an idea of what's going on. Next up, we've got a new Suprlativ knife. That brand being the collaboration of Jared Oser and Enrique Pena. This is the Piranha, $294 for this. I believe this is made, by Riot for them. Very distinctive blade shape, 2.6 inches, M4 blade steel, a little bit on the chunkier side. This is built, less for slicing, more for strength and making holes. Ultem inlays on the titanium handles. This was one that I almost couldn't figure out how to open, and once I did, it scared me just a little bit because I didn't know what was going on. But once you do, it's no problem. There you go. No flipper mechanism, nothing rapid access about this. It's held in place by a magnet. So not technically locking, but also not really in danger of it folding closed on you either, because would have to get through a lot of different mechanisms with stop pins and stuff for that to happen. So no lock to worry about disengaging, which can be quite nice. And being built by Riot, that means it's built exceptionally well too. World-class quality for sure. Next up, the Terrain365, the STS series, newer versions of this now in stock. $385 for this, and for that you're getting some pretty exotic materials, or one particularly exotic material, that being the 3.5 inch clip point blade here, which is made from Terravantium, which is a dendritic cobalt. It's not steel. But what it does is give you a really insanely long-lasting edge. There's a little bit of strength to this blade shape because it is a little bit on the thicker side, and you've only got a saber height flat grind in this case, but it's a really cool blade shape. I dig overall kind of the slightly old school tactical vibes of this knife. We've got a titanium frame with green micarta inlays here. There are a few different inlay options. The self-bolstered look here I especially like. It is a frame lock. We've got dual thumb studs for opening, glow-in-the-dark thumb studs, I should mention, and a milled titanium pocket clip, which you can't see the attachment screw from the outside. It's screwed in from the inside, which is a nice, clean touch. Hidden lanyard point right there. Great action on the blade, great feel in the hand when open. You've got a bit of a thumb ramp there to push off on, but it's not too aggressive. You've got a bit of a finger guard there to keep your finger from moving forward, but it's not too aggressive either, meaning you can take this aggressive looking blade and do finer grips with it. You can kind of get up above it. There's even a hint of a finger scallop right there to make it a very useful everyday proposition. This next knife is not necessarily a very useful everyday proposition, but that's in fact what makes it cool. This is the Microtech Arbiter. $522, 9-inch blade. What is the steel on this one? M390, thicker. You're maybe not quite a 1/4 inch there. It's more like 3/16 of an inch there. Wicked, wicked recurved clip point shape here. It's kind of buoy-esque. You could certainly call it that. It's a little bit, like a slightly more streamlined SOG style Bowie knife. The original Mac V SOG knives, not the SOG knife brand, if you know what I mean. Wicked, wicked cutting power on this knife, thanks to the recurve. We already talked about how that can really help increase your cutting power and increase the amount of sharpened edge you have. Combine that with serrations right here, then this is really gonna rip through some material quite aggressively indeed. Sharpened rear edge with both a serrated section for most of it and a slightly shorter, fair bit shorter plain edge version right there near the tip. Just come on, wicked, wicked cutting and ripping power for sure. I like the execution of the finger choil on this particular knife. It kind of curves here at the back and before leading into the serrated section right there, which makes it something that I'm not worried about accidentally cutting myself too badly on that. You know, when things are overground through that, sometimes that can be a little bit of a concern. This is a good middle ground between this and, you know, not sharpening through. Gives it a good feel. G10 for the handles, flat-sided but girthy enough and shaped just well enough that it doesn't feel blocky. Enough traction there, screwed on handles as you can see, but you're gonna need some proprietary drivers there, of course, if you wanted to remove those handle scales. Protruding pommel there at the back, generous cutout for lanyard attachment at the back as well. Man, this is not necessarily a big heavy chopper, especially not with serrations that might get in the way if you glance off or hit a little too close to the edge if you're doing something like that. The balance of the weight feels more centered on this knife rather than being, you know, out front for hitting, but as such, it moves pretty well. Balance point probably right there around the finger choil. Let's experiment. Yeah, just about. Yeah, maybe a tiny bit handle heavy right there, but not bad. That makes a choked up grip even more balanced than a standard grip. Sheath is over here. It is Kydex with a carbon fiber texture, and you've got these Bastion LLC clips, I believe they are, that behave somewhat like the Alice style or Molly style Tech-Lock clips, in that you've got a modular hole pattern here, or a standardized hole pattern here that means you can move it around, and you've got clip-in locking right there, so it's not gonna come out too easily, and you've got it on both sides. Shall we check? Let's see if a standard Tech-Lock will work if you want it to. Yep, if you want it to, a standard Tech-Lock will fit these hole spacings perfectly. And last but not least, we've got a new Toor Knives dagger. This is the Specter, 4 3/4 inch 3V blade here. That extra toughness is gonna be especially appreciated thanks to that double-edged needle-like point right there. Help it withstand abuse a little bit more. Like M4, this is a very tough steel. It is also a steel that holds an edge quite a long time, but it is not stainless. Remember our conversation from earlier like that. We've got a KG gun coat finish here, nice and durable stuff. And the black really accents the wood handle scales here, which is a grenadillo wood. Feels quite nice in the hand, perfectly symmetrical experience, of course, because, you know, well, you can see it's a perfectly symmetrical knife there, especially with the dual grinds, meaning, especially if you're in a high adrenaline situation, if you grab that knife, you know you're going to be able to wield that knife. You're not going to be accidentally on the wrong side or anything like that. Toor Knives, made in the USA. Everything feels super precise on this for sure. The sheath is also Kydex with a leather-like texture on this particular one. You will have to supply your own attachment hardware, however, it doesn't come with that in the box. Large Tech-Lock hole spacing, outside and middle holes on the Tech-Lock will work perfectly fine for this bad boy right here. All right, well, that's all we've got time for this week. Let me know what you thought in the comments, and to get your hands on these, of course, there are links. They can be found in the description, and they will take you to KnifeCenter.com, as long as Thomas does his job right anyway.
I do my job.
And while you're over there, don't forget about our long-running Knife Rewards program, which lets you earn money towards a future knife when you pick up one of these knives today. Save your points up nicely, you can get 5% back or even more. I'm David C. Anderson from the Knife Center. That's Thomas behind the camera, and we're signing off. See you next time.